All right, James. If you remember, back in October, which seems like 2 years ago, you were we did videos on you using dominoes for wargaming. Okay, uh, basically using common items for wargaming. So you're sort of getting around it and not having figurines. Something that people could play now, like instead of collecting a lot of stuff. Um, what inspired you to do that?
Uh, the guy that I write about, a fighter, guy that we both trained with, I called a brick mouse. I stayed with him and his wife in Baltimore. We were at the Baltimore Coffee Company in Hamden, Maryland, having breakfast. A little mixed race child was accusing me of piracy, and I was
Wow.
agreeing with the child, and I was recommending piracy as a lifestyle, and that we were recruiting even though I was retired. And his mother was horrified, dragged the child away, and Brick Mouse asked me how I, even though I didn't have a military background, how was I able to parse history and sort through uh, battle results from historians, and how conflict made sense to me. Kind of where did I get a mix of operational, tactical, logistical, and social intelligence? And it came from different types of gaming mixed together. Most war gamers, American style war gamers, have very little social intelligence. They will be mugged in a heartbeat because they don't do any role playing and they don't play cards. Most American war gamers despise cards. This is what drunks do. Well,
Oh.
people that play cards have a better active rhythmic memory and will function better when they're drunk than somebody that doesn't play cards. It's just a fact. Uh, so I'm trying to explain to him tabletop wargaming. He had no reference point. He knew what role playing was. Of course, everything's computer games. This kid just turned 30.
Right.
And I thought about it. It's like, wow, I'm one of the youngest people that plays tabletop, die cut, hexagonal grid based war games. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how can I explain that to this kid? And we had played some dominoes together. Excellent chess player. To make chess interesting, he's got to reverse the board every second move, or else the game only takes 3 moves. He just murders me. But the thing that's not realistic about chess is people, both the enemies had the exact same force. They're mirror images.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
Okay, so there's a basic problem with that. So I began thinking of items that could be used uh, to do basic wargaming, and we had been playing dominoes, and I thought dominoes would be excellent for depicting battalions
Okay.
and batteries, and you could move them in column or line. And where modern warfare really began, they they have different versions of warfare now. They continue upgrading the concept of warfare, but modern warfare started in 1648. Essentially, it matured in the early 1700s, came to its peak in about 1810, 1815, the Napoleonic Wars, and then hit the industrial wall during the American Civil
Yeah.
War, where things had to start to be rethunk. But it's very similar to ancient warfare, where it was combined arms warfare, where you had multiple, and this starts with the Aryan invasions about 4,000 years ago, where warfare goes from one tribe of bowmen hunting another tribe of bowmen to one town of spearmen colliding with another town of spearmen, or maybe a town of spearmen trying to get into the forest to fight the bowmen that lived out of there. You would have, just these single unit type military organisms. Once the horse came into being and the dogs started to become used for warfare too, you could have very distinct types of units with different function. So, for instance, the chariot with the composite bow was the big introduction of the Aryans, but that weapon system was not very survivable across different geographical areas without the support of light footmen and without a base of masked spearmen. So now you need the hunter in the woods to guard your flanks and act as your scouts. The main strike force is the chariot force. They need a maneuver base, so you also need the guys from the town. Now you got three distinct types of units that are very different, and they also represent different social classes within the political machine. So I thought that using cards and coins to depict the social mechanisms of conflict, and using dominoes and dice to depict the manpower, and then using everyday tabletop items, coasters, napkins, paper towels, as terrain features for a table. And if you're interested in playing war games, you probably, and you have the resources to invite your friends over to do it, you're probably the dude in your group that's married, right? So don't forget, this doesn't belong to you. You might be paying for it, okay? But it's coming out your ass, okay? It belongs to her. So do not forget that during the Trojan War, that Pallas Athena was the most feared war god, even more feared than war himself.
Right.
And that when Ajax and Hector were dueling, they stopped their duel when they made way for Madam Knight. Okay, so don't tape stuff down when you're wearing ladies' tablecloth and get evicted. All right, you got to be respectful of. And this is another reason why I essentially wanted to use stuff that could be rolled up and thrown in the trash the next day.
I guess.
And things that could just be put away. Once you have pets, if you've got cats, if you have birds, if you have children that are under 6 years old, and if you have busybody females, you can't leave a game set up in a common area. So there's the problem with gaming. You need a table that's usually only provided by a household that's got a woman in there. Because if you're living by yourself, you've got shit all over your table. You can't use it to play anything on. All right, so you got to strike that diplomatic balance with Pallas Athene and Madam Knight. And, so that's where it came about. So we'll go over the game components one by one in different phases of this.
All right. That's kind of funny because actually what you just said mirrored what H.G. Wells said in Little Wars, in the book he published with his little war game with the toy soldiers about pets and women and little children, messing with your stuff. So, all right, cool. So that's and just real quick. I mean, you'll probably discuss this in later vids, but you can't do modern warfare with this, but this is going to be more like what eras of warfare can you do with this?
There's 11 chapters. The first 5 chapters show you how to play.
But wait, real quick, you're making a book with this too.
Yeah, it's already done. The last 6 chapters are how to adjust it for different time periods.
Okay, all right.
So it is specifically designed for the early modern period, which ends at Waterloo in 1815. Okay. There's some rules adjustments that you need to make to play the American Civil War. It's just as good for the American Civil War, but you need some extra dominoes for that, and you need to adjust the range on the units. And I also have rules for playing a 6-man game, like 3 guys to a side. Okay, and you have a council of war, and so on. It's good for the whole idea behind this is the age of the musket, of blackpowder warfare, was the crossover period of chemical warfare, which is gunpowder and other stuff, and muscle-powered warfare. So on the Blackpowder battlefield, you still have cavalry charges, you still have men going at it with steel, with the bayonet, with the sword, with the rifle butt, and then you still have and you also have the deadly firepower, and horrifically you have artillery. At the Battle of Ravenna, and I think it was 1538 or 1638. Ravenna was, I think, a decade away from the Battle of Pavia. It was one of these Renaissance era battles in northern Italy, one cannonball killed like 37 knights.
Oh, damn.
Okay.
Yeah, oh,
It
there
would
you
be
go.
like that would be like one drone or one guided missile taking out like 37 Abrams tanks.
Yeah, that's
Okay, so this is this essentially starts in the 1450s. It's best to cover the period from 1700 to 1850, but it's with a few adjustments, it's just as good for the American Civil War, for colonial warfare in the late 1800s, like British soldiers against Zulus, the Sepoy Rebellion, frontier combat, uh, early modern armies against tribal armies in colonial warfare. And I do, there's a Dark Age chapter, there's an Ancients chapter, where I do 3 different versions of what the Roman legion looked like over time.
Right, so when that's ready, we'll definitely link to that, because that's gonna be fascinating.
It should be published as soon as the Brick Mouse Brilliant Bride shows this dumb has how to use the POD system and print the book. It'll be out. It'll be available as an ebook by May on the website.
Oh, nice.
And
Good.
the rules for how to play, that's going to post for free in September.
All right, cool. All right.
Okay.
All right, so we'll go to the next chapter.